What if the opinions you're most passionate about, no matter which side you're on, aren't fully your own thinking? Let me show you an example you're likely familiar with.
In 3 weeks, the Islamic Republic killed 50,000 innocent Iranian people, yet not a single protest. So why do you think people were so loud on Palestine but so silent on Iran?
If you know how the game works, the answer is quite simple. Sad, but simple. They weren't programmed to care about that. We are so used to being under these influence campaigns that without a pre-built narrative, we almost struggle to think for ourselves. Now, let's put aside for a moment whether a given cause is right or wrong. That's not the point here. The point is, can you spot what's happening here?
What's a socialist intifada?
If I'm being honest with you, I just got this at the stand over there.
Okay.
I don't actually know.
Here's the question that will stick with you. Are you forming your own opinion, or are you being programmed in real time? Something almost no one talks about is happening right now on the left and the right. Two completely different psychological weapons using two different emotional triggers. One goal, control what you believe. And believe me, when the public loses the ability to control their own minds, bad things tend to happen. So, whether you're on the left or the right, do yourself a favour. Lend me your attention for the next 15 minutes. You'll need your brain for this one, but I assure you, if you watch until the end, these psychological propaganda tricks will become nothing more than a joke to you. Let's smarten up and make the world a slightly better place. To understand how this propaganda actually works, we first have to understand ourselves. This manipulation targets both the right and the left because it knows exactly what triggers each side emotionally. In order to see through it, we need to understand what makes us vulnerable and how our instincts are being exploited. The key is recognizing that the left and the right are wired differently, and that's exactly where propagandists strike. Social psychologist Jonathan Haidt identified 5 core moral foundations that shape human morality.
Looking for matches, what are the sorts of things that people talk about across disciplines, that you find across cultures and even across species? We found five best matches, which we call the 5 foundations of morality.
These are the 5 foundations of morality. As we're about to see, the left and the right prioritize these channels in completely different ways. Keep them in mind, because these foundations are the base for every emotional trigger used against you.
If there really are 5 systems at work in the mind, 5 sources of intuitions and emotions, then we can think of the moral mind as being like one of those audio equalizers that has 5 channels where you can set it to a different setting on every channel. Here are the results from about 23,000 American citizens. On the left, I've plotted the scores for liberals. On the right, those for conservatives. In the middle, the moderates. The blue line shows you people's responses on the average of all the harm questions.
Haidt's research proved that the left treats caring for the weak as the ultimate moral standard. The right, in contrast, views authority, loyalty, and purity as equally critical moral pillars. While the left might find these social structures important, they simply do not consider them to be moral issues.
So basically saying, no, this is not morality. In-group authority, this stuff has nothing to do with morality, I reject it. But as people get more conservative, the values rise. We find this in every country we look at. Here's the data for 1,100 Canadians. I'll just flip through a few other slides. The UK.
Let's start with the left wing. Haidt explained that the left gives far greater weight to just 2 of the 5 foundations, care and fairness. So what is care?
The first one is harm care. We're all mammals here. We all have a lot of neural and hormonal programming that makes us really bond with others, care for others, feel compassion for others, especially the weak and vulnerable, gives us very strong feelings about those who cause harm.
On the surface, caring sounds like the highest moral virtue, but when we look closer, we discover it's actually a deeply instinctive, almost animalistic impulse. Seeing a baby cry or a weak person suffering triggers a powerful emotional response that can completely override reason. That instinct is natural and useful, but when it takes full control, it makes people highly exploitable. Before we continue, let's pause for a moment. This is actually one of the most important things we need to understand. How does a healthy, rational person form an opinion? First, you must collect the dry, cold evidence. Nothing but the bare facts. No opinions, no emotions, no interpretations. Just the truth exactly as it is. Second, you take those facts and you apply logic. You analyze them carefully, you listen to every side, you put your own biases aside, and you try to understand what really happened. At this stage, emotion has no place. Only after these 2 stages are complete do you finally reach the 3rd stage, forming your actual opinion. Here's the key point. Emotion should only enter at this final stage. If you see suffering, only now are you allowed to feel anger. If you see injustice, only now should your heart burn with outrage. If you see something good, only now you should feel joy or pride. This is the natural, healthy order. Facts first, logic second, emotion third. Now let's see what happens when this order is deliberately broken. This is exactly how left-wing propaganda works. The moment they hijack your emotions first, reason and critical thinking are completely lost, and the facts become irrelevant. At that point, they've already won. That's the exact moment you are being played. There are numerous examples of this trick, but I've chosen one of the most exaggerated ones. This isn't genuine, and I'll prove it to you in a moment.
You have 2 kids of your own. Is that why you decided to speak out about what's happening in Gaza, specifically with children in Gaza, because of what's happening to the kids there?
I do think being a mother makes you put yourself in that situation. And I think my background in early childhood makes me think about that crucial brain development time of 0 to 3. So if you're being malnourished and you're seeing trauma and you're losing your family, that's a really crucial time of brain development. So I think about that. And then I think just empathy for all kids, which I've always had, because I was asking kind of her to, she was translating and I said, is there any way for them to come here? And she was saying no. And she was saying they don't eat anymore on FaceTime with them. Sorry.
No, it's a horrific situation. But when you speak out about kids in Gaza, Palestinian children, some people, I should say a minority, go crazy. They think it's somehow controversial, it's divisive. And you said the word humanity. Are Palestinian children less human than other children? Should we care less about them? I don't quite get where the controversy is coming from.
The emotion of caring for the weak is one of the most powerful forces inside the human body. But here's what we must understand. This instinct is beautiful, but it can also be weaponized against us, because the moment that button is pushed, your brain shuts down completely. Logic disappears, critical thinking vanishes. All that's left is raw emotion and rage. And that is exactly when the propagandists strike. They don't give you facts. They don't give you context. They flood you with emotional images and immediately inject their conclusion straight into your heart. This is genocide. This is evil. You're no longer thinking. You're just reacting. This is why this tactic works so beautifully on the left, because caring is treated as the highest moral virtue. See how ruthless this manipulation can be. Take that heartbreaking picture of the severely sick boy. That boy was not starving from lack of food in Gaza. He had serious pre-existing medical conditions. In fact, Israel tried to help him and evacuated him at its own expense to Italy for treatment.
Images like this one don't always tell the full story. Overnight, the newspaper issued a clarification regarding the picture. The emancipated toddler, who became a symbol for the horrific starvation in the Strip, suffered from pre-existing health issues, rare genetic conditions.
And that kind of programming leads to a truly absurd reality. You find yourself walking around with absolute unshakable confidence, screaming, protesting and cancelling others, while knowing almost none of the facts and applying zero logic. That is the moment you must realise you aren't thinking, you're being played.
So you got from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What does that mean?
Well, it's quite self-explanatory. It needs to be.
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, isn't it? Because I guess what I mean is, how would that come about? What would happen to the Israelis, etc.?
I don't.
I'm trying to think of how to word it.
That's it?
I don't know. Is it?
Build a new workers' party, a socialist alternative to Sunak and Starmer, for a socialist intifada.
Yeah.
What's a socialist intifada?
If I'm being honest with you, I just got this at the stand over there.
Okay.
I don't actually know the definition of the word intifada.
Okay.
But, I mean...
Do any of you know the definition of the word intifada?
And here is the question that should stop you in your tracks.
Did you know that more Iranians died in Iran in the last 3 weeks than the entire Palestine-Israel war since 7th October?
I did not know that.
No.
It's really surprising, actually.
It's an interesting thing. Protest after protest for 2 years straight screaming about Palestine, yet where we have Iranians being killed by their oppressor, their people themselves protesting, radio silence.
I mean, I don't think it's like an either-or situation. We can feel like anger and hurt and upset about a genocide occurring while also looking at other parts of the world.
In 3 weeks, the Islamic Republic killed 50,000 innocent Iranian people that were just protesting because they're unhappy with the government, they're unhappy with being oppressed, yet not a single protest. So why do you think people were so loud on Palestine but so silent on Iran?
Well, the answer is quite simple. Sad, but simple. They were not programmed to care about that. Think about it for a moment. Let it really sink in. Your deepest sense of caring and compassion is for sale. Whoever has the right money, the right images, and knows exactly which emotional buttons to push can win your heart and therefore control your opinion. So what does it say about us? On that same note, stop for a second and think about little me, a tiny, defenseless YouTube channel just trying to stay afloat in this massive, unforgiving digital ocean. Have some compassion, help a small creator out, and hit that like button. We just saw how one type of manipulation works, and to be clear, I'm not talking about all politicians or all media. I'm talking about specific paid players who manipulate audiences for hidden agendas. Left-leaning manipulation is usually straightforward and emotion-driven, but whether you lean left, right, or nowhere at all, what comes next is worth watching closely, because the techniques used by certain strands of right-wing propaganda are harder to spot, and, in many cases, can be far more dangerous. So, how does this type of manipulation work? Remember, we're not talking about ordinary media or politicians, we're talking about paid operators with hidden agendas, often unknown even to the audience they're targeting. Unlike straightforward emotional appeals, you cannot simply tell this audience what to think. If you pump their emotions and then hand them a conclusion, they'll spot the trick. The target audience for this kind of manipulation, often right-leaning, wants to reach their own opinion. They value facts, logic, then conclusion. So how does propaganda work on them? Instead of giving them the final opinion like they do on the left, right-wing propaganda manipulates the facts and the logic so that when the person finally reaches their own conclusion, it's exactly the conclusion the propagandist wanted them to reach. And this is where the three moral foundations Jonathan Haidt identified become crucial: authority, loyalty, and purity. The propagandist uses stories and hints. They never say directly, "This is what you should think." Instead, they carefully select facts, take them out of context, and build a narrative. The story always revolves around three main themes. There is something going on that you don't know about. These people are not loyal, they will betray you. These people are not pure, they are disgusting and will contaminate our way of life. The ultimate goal is to create a deep fear of chaos and loss of control. The message is, if we don't stop them, they will destroy everything we value and bring chaos. The real genius of this propaganda is that the viewer believes they figured it out themselves. They connected the dots. They feel smart, but they were gently guided the entire time to the exact opinion the propagandist wanted them to have. And interestingly, the most powerful part of this propaganda is often not in the video itself, it's in the comment section. That's where people proudly write the opinion they think they reached on their own. That's where you see how effective the manipulation really was. Now let's see how this is being done. Remember the three main moral foundations that matter most to the right, and at the center of all of it, fear. The deep fear that they have the power to destroy everything we hold dear. Let's watch it together and see if you can spot it yourself.
There's a direct connection between loyalty to a foreign power and a desire to hurt this country. You cannot be loyal to two masters at once. You will love one and hate the other.
Connoisseurs of irony on the show, but if you claim to care about the environment, you think that the little piece of America you're responsible for, that you represent in the Congress, would be clean, but hers isn't. Why?
Well, part of the reason is because her district is actually one of the least American districts in the country.
But this is not a good person, actually.
This is the deep state at work that he's denying exists.
The intel agencies playing in American politics.
Right.
Jeffrey Epstein was a spy.
I believe very strongly he was a spy, yes.
And who do you think he was working for?
The Israelis. I'm confident.
If you're sitting there thinking, wait, isn't this just news like any other? Stick with me. By the end, you'll see this is orchestrated. The more sophisticated operators on the right rarely state their message directly. Instead, they hint, they imply, they tell stories, and they let the audience connect the dots themselves. But there is a crucial difference we must understand. When you push the caring button on the left, you can drive people to protest, boycott, or even hate. When you push the fear button on the right, you are activating something far more dangerous. Fear is one of the most powerful and volatile emotions humans possess. The type of propaganda Tucker Carlson uses works by first destroying trust. Once people lose trust in the media, the government and institutions, they become extremely dependent on the voices calling it out. At that point, the propagandist can say almost anything because the audience has stopped checking facts outside of their trusted source. So, I promised to reveal that this guy is working directly from a right-wing manipulation playbook. This is John Kiriakou, an ex-CIA agent, and he is the loudest voice out there claiming Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad asset. He stands on his soapbox, demanding your loyalty and constantly questioning authority. But it's all a game. Watch this next clip where he openly admits he is working for the Russian government and loudly exposes where his true allegiance lies.
I also have to understand, John, why are you working with Russian state media?
Oh, because I've got 5 kids and nobody's beaten a path to my door to give me work.
Exactly the foundation for how Russian covert influence operations happen.
Aw, poor CIA. There's a former CIA guy working for the Russians. He may do some damage to the American government. The American government. What have they done for me?
If you listen carefully, you don't even need this revelation. You could have spotted him yourself long before this. It's quite obvious. So, by now, you probably know why I hide my face. You know they won't let us speak the truth much longer, but the truth must be told. So quickly, share this video, hit that like button, and expose the truth in the comments. But keep it a secret. They are listening.